Right, guys.
Maybe the fly. Something's wrong with the flywheel.
Yeah.
That's what the dual mass flywheel does. Is it absorbs those.
All those
It
noises.
dampens the movement.
Yeah.
All right, I think we are off and running on everything now.
All right. Verified. Are we true streaming?
Yeah.
Everything's true now.
For real. Oh,
True this, true that.
True.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to the 034 Motorsport Zero BS Q&A live chat. What is this, episode 240?
almost 239.
239. We're here to answer all your questions about all things 034 Motorsport and Audi, Volkswagen, and some BMW. We don't claim to be like BMW experts. I'm Javad Shadzi, and this is Nate Stewart. Please put your question or comments into the comment field of the social media browser of your choice. We're on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And please ask your substantive questions. If you ask update questions about when something is going to be done or whether we're doing something or not, we'll do our best to get to it. But our goal is to prioritize the topical questions first. And a lot of times we don't have good answers. And a lot of times people watching are using things, update responses that we updated to sometimes 2 years ago, and they're giving us a hard time for what we said 2 years ago. So, I don't think there's another tuner that's comes on every week to talk about all the intricate details of their business like we do. So, but we're happy to answer all the questions and start from there. We got questions pouring in, so we should jump on it. We did start a little late today, so we'll be going through till 12:15.
Yep.
Someone's asking, my Mk8 GTI started to make a chatter sound in neutral with foot off the clutch. The noise isn't too loud. Only hear it when the windows are up and the AC is off. Is this normal as the stock clutch wears? It sounds like it's probably really quiet because you do still have a stock clutch. The stock clutch and especially the stock flywheel are designed to reduce this sound in the drivetrain. And what you're hearing is, called gear chatter. And it basically results, the output of the engine is not smooth. You have 4 pistons firing, or sometimes 6 or 8. But when you're dealing with a smaller engine like a 4-cylinder, each combustion event creates a pulse of energy that goes into the crankshaft and into the drivetrain. Just because you're in neutral doesn't mean that there aren't parts of your transmission that are still spinning. And so as each one of those power pulses comes through into the flywheel and clutch, it's transferred to the input shaft. And that causes the gears that are moving and the gears that aren't moving to kind of rattle against each other, or parts of the inside of the transmission. Each one of those pulses creates like a ch. And so at a rapid pace, you hear it. The reason it goes away is when you push in the clutch, you're disconnecting the clutch from the pressure plate and flywheel, and the transmission stops spinning. But when you release the clutch pressure plate clamps on the clutch disc, and that power is transferred through, and the input shaft does spin. Even though it's not in gear, the input shaft and parts of the transmission are still spinning. I think it's normal. It could be that maybe your dual mass flywheel isn't absorbing those vibrations as well as it used to. I don't think it's any cause for worry. Another thing that happens is the throwout bearing, which is the part of the clutch pedal that pushes on the pressure plate to release the pressure plate. Now you'll know when those are going bad. When you push on the clutch, you'll hear a sound. So it'll go away and off the clutch. But when you apply pressure on the clutch, you're loading up that throwout bearing, and it typically is a squeaking, shrill squeaking sound, which means the bearing inside the throwout bearing is metal on metal. The grease came out, and maybe some bearings are failing, and you're getting bad noises.
Sometimes you can even feel it through the clutch pedal too.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes the throwout bearing could seize, and won't even spin. And so when the throwout bearing pushes on the pressure plate teeth are like spinning around on this stationary surface, which is also very bad. Creates all kinds of squealing sounds, and in pretty short order ruin your pressure plate as well. So, anyways, I think it's okay. It sounds very faint that you can't hear it with the windows up and stuff like that. All right,
so it's reporting they have the same sound in the Mk8. It's probably just really light gear rattle.
Now, this is something that you'll notice with an aftermarket flywheel, say like a solid flywheel, like an aluminum flywheel, without a lot of weight, because a heavy, even a single mass, but a heavy single mass flywheel is so heavy, it has a lot of inertia, so that it dampens those power pulses out, like in the old days before dual mass flywheels were like solid steel, like 30 pounds. And that would do a pretty good job of preventing gear rattle, just because of the mass would insulate the rest of the drivetrain. But if you say put like a 6-pound aluminum flywheel on there, it's going to be super loud gear chatter. And the way you know it is you push the clutch in, it goes away, disengage the clutch, lift off the pedal, re-engage the clutch, and lots of rattling sounds. It just sounds like a box of bolts.
Yep.
So it's all totally normal stuff. Do you guys plan on making more aftermarket support for the D9.5 S8?
Yep. So that's the latest 4-liter one?
Yeah.
Yep.
We're working on tuning and calibration solutions. It's not a super popular application for, say, like suspension and handling mods. Like if we make it and it happens to fit, great. Personally, I love the S8. I think awesome. Maybe at some point when I don't have 4 kids who need a ride in a car, maybe if it was just me and I was looking for like just a Autobahn cruiser, I'd definitely get an S8. They're really cool.
But you can get the S8L now too, so you just kind of stack them on top of each other.
Yeah. B9 SQ5 Stage 1, could you tell me how to do a better brake boost? Doesn't seem worth doing, not much difference.
On a Stage 1 car, you may not notice that much difference because the turbo is going to come online so soon, but brake boosting is going to be, basically getting it at your optimal RPM for whatever speed you're at. You don't want to be like lugging the thing or right before the shift point. And then, it's just on the brakes and then maintaining the brake and then mashing the gas to maintain your speed and come off the brake. But you need to be, up there in the revs. You want to probably like $5,000 or so or higher for it to really make much of a difference. But that's pretty much all there is to it.
Hey, for number 4, can you guys look at the install instructions and see what we recommend? I don't want to give conflicting info.
Yeah.
Is the B9.5 RS5 a car you would recommend keeping long term, or should I sell it after it gets to 60,000, 70,000 miles?
Dude, those are awesome cars.
They're great cars. I would not see any reason why you would have to sell it. Any car is gonna need maintenance as it ages, but it's not like the things start falling apart at 100,000 miles. They don't. They're great cars, solid motors. I think you can keep it as long as you want. I mean, that's still a really new car that would still look good in 5-8 years.
Yep.
I think with all the electrification coming along, there's a good chance that those cars will, I'm not saying they're going to be investor,
Yeah.
But I think they'll hold enough value to be like, an internal combustion performance car that people will still want in 10 years. That's another car I would love to daily drive if I didn't have kids.
That's like a pattern.
Yeah. I know the B9 S5 has an auxiliary radiator for which you offer an upgrade. My B9 RS5 has a small radiator on the passenger side behind the wheel bumper. What is that for?
That's an auxiliary radiator.
Yeah. So the RS5 has 2 auxiliary radiators on each side, and so our goal for the S4 is to offer upgraded versions of that. But that is one of the benefits of the RS5, just stock. It has more cooling from the factory. Hello, I just purchased a B8 resonator delete, what we call a ResX, and was doing conflicting research. Do I need a Sawzall We do list using a Sawzall, which would be a quick and easy way to cut through the exhaust pipe. There's more than one way to cut an exhaust pipe. You could probably use a hacksaw if you want a good workout. Honestly, a cutting wheel. I haven't used them a lot, but there's those chain cutters.
Yeah, I don't know if there's enough room between the pipes.
Yeah,
there is the only thing.
I don't know either. And those work good on. I mean, I have used those on, say, like aluminized, galvanized steel pipe, but stainless steel is really hard.
Yeah.
And I feel like we were at an event once, and I tried to cut a stainless steel pipe with one of those.
Probably, and yeah, it'll just turn your discs into like mush.
It scored it a little bit, yeah. So Sawzalls are great. If you don't own one, I think you can get one at Harbor Freight as a cheap one there. That's good enough for a weekend warrior use.
I was going to say you can probably rent them at like
Home
Depot or whatever, but they're so they're so cheap.
But if you need to cut something, if you're doing a project around the house, zombie apocalypse, home defense,
they are useful.
Riots. Just get yourself like a 12-inch all-purpose blade, and you can slice and dice your way to protection. Yeah, sure. You don't even. I mean,
just if this is your first time using one, be aware of what's on the other side of the pipe when you're cutting, and
and be careful.
Your blade, your blade
is with all
is only impacting what you want it to.
But if you do. For this purpose, you'll want to get a relatively short metal cutting blade. I think like a 4-inch blade would probably be fine. And they even have battery powered ones, which is recommended for like a zombie apocalypse kind of situation.
It should be tethered.
Yeah,
when the grid goes down.
For a 24 RS5, if I paid for an FSD unlocking session, SFD.
Yep.
What did I say?
FSD. You did full self-driving. You went to
FSD. Oh, weird. I read SFD. With a third party, would I be able to flash both your ECU and TCU software? Could I change feeling maps without needing another unlocking session?
Yeah, so from what we've seen and what we've had reported, yes, you'll be able to flash just fine ECU and TCU and to whatever map you need there. In the future, I want to say it's like maybe like a 24-hour period that it remains unlocked. After that, you will need to unlock it again for any even simple diagnostics. Unfortunately, that's just the way things are going these days. They're locking everything down. So yeah, you will need another SFD unlock to do anything at all really with the ECU or TCU in those. And that's not limited to our tool. That's literally every tool out there. You can't get past the gateway to talk to the ECU or TCU.
Has anyone reported misting leaking at the PCV solution? Assuming this is for the B9 stuff. All silicone hoses like this are going to weep, or what we call sweat, a little bit. The oil molecules are very small, and they slowly work their way through the silicone and will kind of condense on the outside of the hose. That's relatively normal. You can just wipe it down periodically if it's a concern. But yeah, no, that's not a new thing, and it's a trade-off of using silicone. Silicone is a more porous material than rubber, but it's a much more durable, longer life material. That silicone will last forever. F80 M3, I'm getting a lot of vibration with the 034 street density motor mounts when turning on the AC. Is there a way to offset this? One of our marketing guys has an F80 as well, and confirms that there is an NVH increase, but he thinks it's pretty minimal. Yeah, when you turn on the AC compressor takes a lot of energy to compress those gases and create the cooling effect that it does. And it probably uses 5 horsepower or something like that. So at idle, in order to offset that power increase, because your motor's not really making any horsepower, it's going to bump up your idle to offset that load. And so it's putting the engine operating range in a slightly different resonance point of the power band, which unfortunately is activating some of this NVH that you're feeling. The way to offset this would be to play with the idle speed and see if you can raise it or lower it a little bit to get out of that resonance. But you know, whenever you stiffen a motor mount like we have here, there's going to be some trade-offs, and sometimes having a little bit of NVH, say at idle or in reverse or sitting at a stoplight, is worth the trade-off of having a firmly planted motor that positively delivers power and torque to the drivetrain. If it's really bothering you, and say you're at a stoplight, I believe you could just put the car in park, you know, as opposed to just sitting there and drive with your foot on the brake. So you can play with any of those options if they're available. I know for our Audi tuning, we will cater or tailor or curate the idle speed for this type of stuff. B9 S4 running all of your track spec suspension components. Can you please recommend track spec alignment settings?
B5. Huh?
And a B5, I would say, based on our time attacking a B5 chassis, it's going to depend on a lot of factors. But I think if you could get 3 degrees in the front and maybe like 4 or 5 in the rear, that feels like that was a pretty good camber setup. And then as far as alignments, it really depends on your personal preference. One of our drivers, Christian, loved to drive the car completely batshit loose through every corner sideways. And so we would give him toe out in the rear, which is terrifying.
It makes for a very unsettling feeling down straights and whatnot.
I'm not a race car driver. I'm a very good driver, but I'm not comfortable. Yeah, I was never comfortable driving that car more than like 5/10, you know, on track. But the car would not go in a straight line. It would just zigzag, and it was just like, and unless the car was sliding or sideways,
yeah, fully loaded up in the corner was kind of the same piece.
Yeah. But in general, I think you know, I don't know. What do you think? Just pretty much straight or slight?
I mean, straight will get you a pretty sporty feeling. You know, rear. I don't know, not necessarily rotation, but a lot more lively rear end in corners. It will be a little twitchier in straights.
Yeah.
The towing in of both the front and the rear is more just a straight line stability thing.
It's stabilized.
So you've got basically a dead zone before you've got a tire that's actually initiating a turn one way or the other, and you know, as you over undulations and things. So yeah, the more to straight and then slightly towed out, the more lively it's going to be. But the quicker you get some turn in, the better it'll rotate. So those are all the trade-offs, and there's no one alignment setting that you know is going to work across tracks, tires, and cars. So it's one of those things. If you're getting into that level of you know, refinement or testing or you know, desire to really dial it into that degree, it's just going to take a lot of testing and preference. I mean, you can have the same car, give it to two different, you know, professional drivers, and they're going to want something slightly different each.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. So the best thing is get out at the track and try different things. The good news is you have the adjustability now. So, and it's going to be a combination between how the car feels and how fast you can go in it. Sometimes going the fastest lap feels the worst, or it could feel worse. You could make a change and feel like the car is scarier to drive and harder to drive, and you could go faster. And that's kind of one way to look at it. Depends what you're trying to do, though.
Yep.
You want to really get crazy, give yourself some toe out in the front.
Yeah, and there's people that have gone to the extremes too. There's a lot of good books on it. There's if you research the camber car, you can see a guy that took and went to like absolute extremes of camber and played with a bunch of alignment settings. He ended up using his like older, I don't know, bias ply or whatever. They're very like round tire to begin with, and just affected the camber to like 40 degrees of camber, like some pretty insane changes to see where it went. So you can kind of see how camber can play an effect. That's obviously the extreme, but yeah, there's no one answer to all of it.
Yeah. Apparently the stance guys are on something.
Right.
If I run E85, are there any side effects on my E888 Gen 3 2019 GLI? Just that it'll probably be faster. We talk about this a lot. I mean, I don't think there's anything that I've seen, experienced, or read that says E85 is detrimental. Keep in mind, it is a factory approved fuel that really not much these days, but say going back 15 years, just about every car came with E85 compatibility from the factory. So, like we say often, you can try cycling in some gasoline every once in a while if you're concerned about it. That can help clean the fuel system components. But there's really no proven predictable impact or side effects of running E85 on a car like that. I have a Stage 1 ECU and TCU on my CREC Audi, and I'm running full 85. I'm going to install upgraded spark plugs. What else do you think would help?
I mean, all of our normal supporting mods. So Stage 1, that's going to be, intercooler or a heat exchanger for sure. Fresh plugs that do what you need to do. Absolutely. Beyond that, there's not a lot needed on that platform to get you in a good place. Keeping the intake charge cool is going to be the biggest one.
How does one permanently turn off the pre-driver sense for the braking feature? I know how to do it on the screen, but every time you start the car, it turns back on.
It's super annoying. And it's
RS5.
It's kind of across the VAG platform, depending on the model. It's really obnoxious. I don't know that there's a good way across the board to just disable it fully. No, it's something that they implemented in a way that is a little cumbersome.
This is just starts braking.
The presense, like you can even turn traction control fully off, turn all the nannies you think are off, and you get in a situation. It's really annoying on track, especially when you're coming up on cars and whatnot. It'll instantly re-engage the presense, freak out, and then turn all your traction control back on and get all grumpy. So, it's obnoxious. You've got to go into the MMI, the driver settings, the vehicle setup or something like that, and then turn it off before you start your session.
Cool. Ordered a high pressure fuel pump for my B9 A4 last week. Super excited to get another 50 horsepower on E85, but it seems low. Are the injectors of the turbo the limiting factor on E85?
Yeah, it's out of turbo.
Yeah, and 50 horsepower is not too shabby.
When you're talking like a 4-cylinder 2-liter motor, only another 50 is a pretty big thing.
I remember back in my day when we got another 5 horsepower out of a 90 horsepower car. Right. It was a big friggin' deal.
Right. Oh, B9 A4 news too. That the motor mount question you answered earlier was actually he has an F80, but he also has a B9 A4, so that one was related to the B9 A4. Everything you said still translates. It's all accurate.
Yeah, and the A4 makes more sense because it's a smaller motor and it needs even more help with the AC on than say like a straight 3.5 liter straight 6 or whatever it is. So it's bumping the idle up, and it's that extra load is creating that NVH. Love the PCV solution. Great peace of mind. B9 S4, was it both your personal preference in sound tone, NVH, and the ResX delete versus X-pipe daily drive? We'll do one or the other stock downpipe. For a B9 S4, in general, we've been adding the X-pipe feature to these because it does sound better. Back when we were doing developments on the exhaust system components for the B9 S4 in 2018, 2019, I really liked the way the car sounded with the stock Cat and the ResX. Mm-hmm. With the high flow Cat and the ResX, it got a little racy, a little loud. I'm older now, and I'm not trying to get a lot of attention with the exhaust. I felt like just the ResX was how the car should have came. I also felt like with the the high flow racing cat and the stock exhaust, it sounded wonderful too. It added this kind of exotic bark, but it wasn't too loud. But once you, and this is totally personal preference, if you want it to be louder and sound like more of an open exhaust than both pieces, but I think you'll be very happy with the Resix by itself. Oh, and then as far as so he's talking about the downpipe and then the X bike. I don't have a lot of experience personally with the downpipe pieces. From what I've been seeing, customers have been doing both and really liking it. But I don't have a. I can't. I've heard it, but
it depends on the turbo too. The turbo itself will make a pretty big change depending on what your whole combination is. I mean, to start,
everything I said is related.
We offer both solutions. It's just a personal preference thing, and your driving style and how you're using the car. Stock. If you're on stock downpipe though, all of them are pretty tame. So you shouldn't have a problem with like drone or anything like that. You'll get a little bit more bark if you get both of them in there.
Yeah. Sorry, wish I could give you like more of a straight answer, but I do monitor all of our sales, and I do see at least half the customers ordering both pieces, and the feedback's very good on that, for what it's worth. You guys ever run sales on suspension components? We do run several sales a year. We do not announce them ahead of time. But if you can go back and look at the sales that we had last year, they're probably going to be similar. Yes, I do think you'll be pleased in the next month or so. So that's all I'll say. 23 S3, slight smell of fuel and oil after about 1,000 miles on new oil. Compression okay, fuel pump okay. What would cause this?
Slight smell of fuel, like just in the engine bay? Or
I would be very skeptical or cautious. Almost all, any car you pop the oil cap, you're going to smell some fuel.
That's why I'm wondering where they're smelling it. Oh, smell fuel in oil. I'm sorry, in the oil. So if they're popping the cap, that's very common. There's honestly factory calibration parameters in the ECU that regulate or account for an amount of fuel in the oil because it's a known pretty stable quantity of blow-by gases and mixture that'll get down into the crankcase. So you will get some odor of fuel in the oil. Completely normal.
Yeah, you're never. I mean, go smell 4 other cars just for the hell of it. If you have some friends, say, "Hey, I'd like to smell your oil."
Right.
Hopefully they'll allow you to, but you could also get the police called on you. Sure, but it's anytime you pop it, it's just going to smell like there's always some fuel going in the oil. Like Nate said, that's normal. There's literally ringlands trying to keep the fuel out of the oil, and they do it like 99.5% of the time.
Yep.
And it's one of the main reasons you want to change your oil every so often, because there's stuff
getting contaminated.
Yeah. Number 1, I can't remember what our position was on answering that.
I mean, it's a yes, but in the word.
Well, I know it's a yes.
Yep.
Didn't someone last week say don't?
I don't know on that one.
Well, Stage 2 TCU on an RS5 provides smoother shifting, reduced jerkiness in those early gears over Stage 1, or is Stage 2 mostly catered towards making the car shifting faster?
So, kind of yes to both of those. A lot of that jerkiness is actually in some of the like slower shifts. You get a little more like a rubber banding and a kind of a bouncing between gears, you could say, with a slower shift. We do try and strive to make it as smooth and seamless of a shift as possible in those. And then, that's much quicker shifting, of course, under wide open throttle situations, and launch control stuff's all dialed up and whatnot. But it should be smoother. I mean, again, it's all subjective, so It's going to depend on your exact situation. But we also offer, always the 30-day money back. If it's not what you want, doesn't do what you need it to do, you can just flash back to stock or stage one and be on your way. But no, I think you'll like it.
Guys, I encountered a 22 M5 on the highway. M5 was struggling to keep up with me. FYI, I only have a stage 1 ECU and stage 2 TCU. No hardware mod except transmission billet insert. I only hate the body roll in my car. What's the top speed?
This thing's going all over the place.
B9.5 S4 after speed limiter is removed. Well, yeah, that's good to hear about the M5. A stage 1 B9 S4 is a quick car.
Yeah. Can't say as I've done a full top speed run anywhere.
We do not know what the top speed is. I wouldn't be surprised if it was over 200.
It's going to really depend on what fuel you're running, ambient conditions, all that.
Definitely stage 1 E85 or 1 plus, I think, would definitely get to 200. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, sounds like you're having fun. Keep at it.
Yeah, as far as the body roll,
body roll,
we've got all the suspension widgets that'll help.
We can fix that.
Sway bars and springs are going to be the two that are going to be the obvious choices there.
Yes. Yeah, if you do our springs and sway bars, you will be very happy with how your car drives and handles.
Yeah, flattens it out a lot.
Someone would like to know if they should fill their gas tank with soy sauce.
Maybe not your gas tank.
No, this is a German car. You're going to use sauerkraut.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe vinegar?
Hefeweizen.
Mm-hmm. Maybe Pilsner. Adding your rear sway bar to my Golf R, what kind of average drop in autocross times should I see? I couldn't say. I wouldn't be surprised if you dropped a second or two. It's just going to depend on how it helps you. It will definitely make the car handle flatter, and it will make the car rotate better.
There's also no such thing as an average autocross. They are all over the place. You've got some runs that are 30 seconds, some that are a minute and a half. So I mean, you're
like 20.
Yes, your scope of what a time differential would be.
But I think you should see a nice drop, especially if it helps you get the car turned.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was a second.
Yeah, I used to autocross a bunch. I had a lot of rear bar. So I would actually run with I would get there, disconnect my front bar. This is years and years ago, but disconnect my front bar, run my rear bar on full stiff, and use a lot of throttle control to get the car to rotate. Because I was driving a VAG product that was very prone to pushing. So it was a lot of dynamic chassis control needed to get it to come around.
Mm-hmm.
But yep, rear bar should certainly help.
I have to say, I truly appreciate you guys a lot. I got your package in the mail, and the kid and I are loving it.
Which package? It's good to hear.
We saw a lot of different stuff. So cool to hear. Thank you. That's why we do what we do. In your opinion, is LiquiMoly overrated? What would you recommend for a 4M.5 Stage 3 TTE810 Q7 with forged internals? No, I don't think it's overrated. I think LiquiMoly is a premium lubrication company. I think they're the real deal. It doesn't mean that there's not other good oils out there too. I think in general, if an oil meets a certain rating standard, especially like the Audi factory standard, then you should be able to use it with confidence. But there is a lot of good oil out these days. It's a lot different than when I was younger, and like it was like Mobil 1 or Redline, and that was kind of it.
Yeah, definitely look for the ratings. There'll be a VW spec rating on any good oil. I've mentioned this before. I think it was Engineering Explained on YouTube did a really in-depth breakdown, actually on Mobil 1 of all things, and how they achieve those ratings and what kind of standards and testing they have to do to get those certifications, and it's insane. It's a very it's not just casually handed out for those certifications at all. So if it's got the rating for the OEM level, it's a pretty good chance you're in a good spot.
As far as stage 3, we do list 5W40 as the required oil to run with that. Okay. Anything you guys can spill on the upcoming Stage 3 stuff for the B9 2-liter? Nothing specific other than it's looking very promising, and I think it will be very fun for the people who get to enjoy it.
A good chunk faster for sure.
Do I need to step up in terms of oil rating for B9.5 S4 Stage 1 ECU TCU other than the factory recommends?
It's all oil change time.
We talk about this all the time. For Stage 1, the factory oil is fine. You could move to the SQ5 spec, which is a little heavier weight oil.
Yeah. Again, it depends too on what you're doing. So there's no one answer usually that'll cover all these. What's your climate? Are you on track with it? If you're on doing a bunch of really high sustained load stuff, it's probably a good idea to run a little heavier oil on even a stock car. But yeah, if you're just driving to town or doing long highway cruises, it's not going to matter.
Why do you not allow transferring a tune to a new ECU if the original car is detuned? Cobb allows you to unmarry their Accessport for reselling.
That unmarries the Accessport, but I don't believe that unmarries, or that doesn't get you like a free tune for the next car. It lets the Accessport be used across a different vehicle.
Yeah,
I similar to our if we locked our cable, the actual flashing dongle down to a vehicle, which we don't.
We don't.
I don't know the specifics of the Cobb, ecosystem, but I don't think you can just step up from a 2005 Subaru all the way up to a brand new.
I don't know what Cobb does, but it's not really a fair comparison. So Cobb does not sell factory ECU remaps. They sell something similar, but if you look to the kind of Volkswagen, Audi aftermarket, and all the big prominent tuning companies, we all have the same policy, which means that we sell a tune for a particular VIN, and the tune should stay with the car in the future. We do allow special circumstances. For example, if a customer wrecks a car and they want to replace it with the same car, things like that. But in general, these tunes are not transferable across the industry. It's also a lot of work.
I was gonna say there's a lot of work per vehicle, per calibration, you could say, per platform. So it's not like it's the same file. We just here's our Stage 1. It just gets stacked into all these cars. It's specific to that vehicle.
If you do have the same exact car, let's say you have a 2018 B9 S4, and something happens to it, you want to transfer it to another 2018 B9 S4, just email us and we'll work with you. But if you want to transfer your 2018 B9 S4 tune to a Mk8 GTI, that's something we don't do, because you didn't buy that tune, you bought an S4 tune. So like Nate said, they're different tunes, completely different tuning calibration. Yeah, and if we ever did do it, we'd have to charge a fee, but I'm not aware of anyone that does. And then you kind of get into this whole, like, you're ripping me off, I already paid one. So I don't know, it's a tough thing. So for the time being, if you have a question about this, contact us. And we also do offer repeat tuning, repeat customer discounts. So if you've bought from us and you sell your car, you want to buy another tune, reach out to us and we'll help you out. So we do already try really hard to accommodate that. Mk8 GTI owner, no question, but I can't wait for more GTI updates. I'm super impatient, but I'm waiting. Love my Stage 1. Thank you.
Yep, updates are coming.
Oh, that's good to hear, Em. There's plenty more stuff coming. Other than an ethanol sensor, what necessary upgrades are needed on the CREC platform?
Cooling. Like we mentioned that before, the heat exchanger stuff is always the first go-to.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's going to depend on where you're going to take it. If you're going to just stay in Stage 1, or if you pulleys, fixed clutch stuff is the fixed supercharger clutch is a really solid upgrade on those.
Yes,
as mileage goes up and or your pulley ratios go up.
Can you guys give a little more information on number 4? Like, does it really say number 3 now? Does it really say that on their site, or because obviously our standard S34 does not require it? I just want to know what our website actually says before.
S34 requires it. Yeah. I think that's what he's referring to.
It does. The website does say.
It does. Yeah, there's no.
But isn't that the super? Oh, that because that's a super duper.
It is. Yeah. There's no standard S34 that doesn't.
Right. On the B.
Someone says, I bought your cold air intake a while back for my 2021 S4, but you had never said the turbo inlet was required. I checked your site and it now says you require it. So my question is, do I need it? Yeah, so for the B9 S4, the only S34 we offer is a super duper S34, which means it's designed to be used with our high flow turbo inlet. So you do need it. So our like P34 and our X34 intakes fit to the stock inlet. We also offer super duper versions of those as well. But for the S34, we opted to just do the super duper because it's a real high flow, high performance option, and didn't make a lot of sense. The super duper inlet's not that expensive, and so you can just do it all at once. We sell it separately without the inlet because we sold lots of those inlets before we released that intake. So I believe it should have said that the whole time. I'm sorry, maybe you missed it, but that was the whole concept of the super duper S34 from the very beginning. If you need some help with that, shoot us an email and we'll be happy to help you through that. Will running the P34 intake and turbo muffler delete on a B9 A4 without a tune cause me to run lean or over under boost? Should I skip the turbo muffler delete in general?
Turbo muffler delete will have basically zero effect on the turbo's performance and any of the mapping. And the P34 intake, no, you'll be fine. It won't run lean. The only effect it's going to have is a little bit of turbo pre-control differences because your pressure differential coming into the turbo is a little different, but it's within what the factory software can handle just fine. So there won't be any lean conditions. The map sensors, the pressure sensors, reading or monitoring the pressure of the air in the intake are still gonna account for all that. So, nope, you can install those just fine.
Any negatives to keeping the stock exhaust valves open the whole time?
It's louder.
I don't think so. Other than it's just going to open or close your exhaust. So. I don't think so, unless quiet exhaust is your goal.
Yep.
If I'm only running 93, is it still the best option to go with the TTE810, or would it be better to optimize a smaller turbo?
I mean, the 810 is still going to be a good chunk quicker.
That's going to make the most.
As far as like overall performance, you're still going to be ahead of the game with the 810 by far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's actually, optimizing a smaller turbo, there's only so much you can do with that heat pump, or the air pump turns into a heat pump. And you end up running, potentially higher boost pressures trying to account for it, whereas you can get the same power output at a lower boost pressure with a larger turbo. You've got a more efficient air pump. It's usually more beneficial to optimize it for a larger turbo, given an octane limitation.
You guys ever make a full assembled high pressure fuel pump for the Audi 4.0T, not just the plungers?
Which 4.0T do we know?
Probably C7. We offer
we have the plungers because we crossover, yeah.
I mean, we're talking about doing more of that. It would be like new OE high pressure fuel pumps that we fit here, so that all you have to do is just bolt the assembly in. It's something we're looking into. Definitely understand the benefits. It's going to be more expensive, and you'll get a whole new fuel pump. So we'll keep you posted. But glad to hear you're interested. I think we did 3. Are oil and spark plug intervals shortened with just the Stage 1 tune 93 on a Mk8 GTI? Not technically, but you are gonna see more wear on your spark plugs, and with the higher loads the engine's seeing, I think it's a good idea to probably shorten your oil change intervals too. I don't think we demand anything, but
no, not on a Stage 1. And again, I'm going to keep broken record today, but it's going to really depend on the use case. So if it's just a normal, like, daily driven Stage 1 car, with sporadic loads and on ramp scoots, you'll be fine.
It looks like a Dan Eckerman is
Checking
in the
in.
house. Says, when's the Hyper Mega Super Duper release? Oh man, I'm trying to remember some inside jokes from the Dan Eckerman era.
May not be repeatable here.
Well, just wait till we drop the Hyper Mega gun sight.
Yes,
those are coming soon.
The scope,
yeah, gun scopes. It's gonna be a big seller in Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
So, hope you're doing well, Dan. Thanks for checking in. They're also getting big.
Dude, yeah.
Hurry up and tune the B10. Yeah, well, we're very interested to get our hands on one, which should be in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
So we'll keep you guys posted. It's a whole new era of tuning possibilities. Do you guys have a favorite back road that you guys like to drive on? Oh yeah, around here.
We are flush with options here. My commute here today actually was.
You live in the mountains.
I live in the mountains, but it was like, oh, that's my path to get to work today because I had to drop kids off and things at summer camps, and it was just it was. Many of the Santa Cruz mountain escapes was what I was navigated to without choice on Google Maps today. So yeah, we've got all kinds of fun options just to go cruise. And it's not even like we're ripping around. Just driving the speed limit on these things can be challenging enough.
Yeah. In the Bay Area, I think it's generally known that, and I would agree with this, that Highway 35 is a very fun road to drive, and all the ancillary kind of Highway 9 connects to it. My probably all-time favorite epic driving road is Page Mill Road, which comes down off of Skyline and drops you off kind of into not Cupertino, but like Palo Alto, maybe Los Altos area. Yeah, more like Palo Alto. And I don't do that much of that type of driving anymore, just because I don't need the trouble. And I wrecked and totaled one car up there.
Way back, yeah.
Probably 20. I would go up there in my 4000 Quattro with lowering springs and Boga turbo gas struts.
Oh yeah.
And I think I had an Adco rear sway bar. And I would race like guys with like Mustangs and Civics, and we would race and drive like fucking insane maniacs. And I finally crashed. And I walked away from it, thankfully, but it could have been very bad. But if you do kind of the Highway 9 to 35 to Page Mill, it should be like a race. Like they should just shut it down once a year and let people just race it, because it's epic. You get kind of everything from like 10-mile-an-hour switchbacks to 130 plus mile an hour sweepers and everything in between. It's epic. So but yeah, but there's so many good roads in the Bay Area. You can go California in general, but you can go to the coast. You can go out into kind of the Sierras. Just unlimited windy roads out there. But to have something that you can really get to know and drive on a regular basis, yeah. So yeah, lots of people crashing apparently up there. It's tough too, because there's, I don't know nowadays, but there used to be a lot of cyclists up there.
Oh no, it's not a place you want to rip around.
Which is insane.
Like, you gotta, I mean, just enjoy it for the road for the most part. Don't be an idiot on it.
I'm a cyclist.
There's tons of bikes, and
I would never ride.
Mixed riders and mixed transport, because it's such an iconic and fun series of roads. There's street bikes, supercars, pedal bikes.
I'm a cyclist. I would never ride up there. That's
no
a death wish.
But
I used to know when I worked at Fry's, the Monster Cable rep was I thought he was really old, but he was probably like 35, and I think he was divorced and dedicated his whole life to cycling as much as he could, which I can kind of relate to. But he would ride on 35, and he'd carry a gun.
Great,
because he was like.
I was actually thinking about that. I was actually thinking about because you're kind of in like the the backwoods of the Bay
Nah,
Area.
he was going to shoot a motherfucker.
But yeah,
you know,
there's some you know, some mountain folk back
Yeah.
there that'll keep you on your toes.
and I think I was like 21, and I was like, guess I better be nicer to those cyclists.
Yeah. No, give him some space. There's no need to
So, anyways, that's Bay Area
endanger anyone. But yeah,
roads for you. There's a lot of good canyon driving in Southern California.
there's a lot of good canyon stuff down there too. Yeah, look at any of like the smoking tire Matt Farah videos.
He does
He's down there a lot.
stuff down.
Good stuff.
For the MQB Insuction bundle, the install instructions don't mention removing the baffle and the airbox. Is it still okay to remove it? Yeah, so you can remove it, but if you live kind of in an area where it snows and rains a lot, it's a good idea to keep it.
Yeah, it's a snow shield.
Yeah.
So if you're one that likes to like do the cartoon puncture through the snowbanks on your way out of your driveway, you might want to keep it or swap it in for the winter months. But that's its primary purpose. So you don't basically cake that intake completely solid with
the Kool-Aid smidge.
Yep.
Does 8V.5 RS3 Stage 1 E85 require upgraded spark plugs? No, we do not require upgraded plugs until Stage 2. So you can keep stock plugs Stage 1. We do also offer brisk plugs that could be seen as a higher performance option, but we do not require it. Do you think a Stage 3 B9A4 would keep up with a Stage 2 B9 S4? I don't think so.
Stage 2 B9. Sorry, I was getting hit up by the way.
Stage 2 B9 S4 is, well, fuel for fuel, I'd be surprised. I think the A4 will make solid peak power, but all that area under the curve and the torque is just not going to be there. But a Stage 3 B9 A4 will be very quick on its own. But yeah, you're going from 2 liters to 3 liters. That's we'll have to see, but it's just getting between shifts, you lose so much acceleration. I think we got through all the questions. B9 S4 boosts very little until it's been driven for 10 minutes. Then full boost sometimes boosts fully when cold. Any idea?
There should not be like any kind
No.
of threshold there. We would need to see some either logs or fault codes or see what
It's a stock or on R2.
Yeah, not sure there.
I would start by checking codes and going from there. You could reach out to our tuning at 034motorsport.com.
Yep.
For some tech support. Dynamic plus lowering springs B9 Audi. Please tell me car work on a standard Q5 B9 I want to order. Yeah. Do we know what our SQ5 springs work on the Q5?
It's SQ5, right? But in theory, yes.
It should. And
Verify. Drop.
The thing is the SQ5 is already a little bit lower stock, so the amount of lowering on a Q5, I don't think we've tested that. But if you want to shoot us an email to sales at 034motorsport.com, maybe we can inquire with engineering and see. If we haven't, we should verify.
That B9 question says he's stage 2 with R2, and he also gets an overboost sometimes. I'm kind of leaning on, have you checked your wastegate line for coolant based on some of the stuff you're saying?
You get codes with that?
You will eventually, but you get some really funky boost control before you do, before you get codes, or you can. So what can happen on those is the water pump, there's an actuator in the water pump that can start to leak, and the coolant will seep into the actuator for that, which is on the same vacuum line as your wastegate control signal, and that can cause some boost control regularity for sure.
How do you guys match lowering springs to factory DCC struts on a Mk8? Yeah, there's really only a couple of factors that you have to manipulate when it comes to springs, and it's the length or free length of the spring, and then the stiffness of the spring. And so we spend time testing and adjusting those two factors while still ensuring optimal performance of the factory dampers, which means that the car is not going to be bouncy, the car is not going to be overly stiff, the car will still maintain a good ride and good ride control, keep the tires firmly on the pavement. So, just a lot of testing, and we've been doing it for a while, so we already have a pretty good idea when we start. And one thing is you just can't go too low. So with the factory damper, the factory designs the valving to be in the middle of the shock body, right? So that means that the shock can go down or up in either direction with plenty of travel. But when you lower the car, you push the valve down lower into the strut, which means you have less travel down at the bottom, which can cause bottoming out. So it just means we can't dump the car 2-3 inches and expect the factory shock to still work. So the only way to lower the car that much and still have a shock that works would be to have a different shock with a shorter shaft that pulls the valving back up into the middle of its operating range. What's the max? We get this every week. What's the max pulley ratio for Stage 2 B9 S4 versus Stage 2 Plus?
It's what we list on our site. Typically, it's going to be the 57.1 millimeter upper with the stock lower, or you can do the 179 lower with the stock upper. You can deviate from that a little bit depending on your location. There's people at altitude that will run a slightly higher pulley ratio because of the way the tune is set up. It'll ask for a certain maximum amount of basically boost pressure, and you can get some of that back with a little bigger ratio at altitude. But at sea level, it's just the single pulley combos that we list on the website.
Yeah, I think we're just about out of time.
Yep.
We are clocks away.
Closing up here. Yeah, that thing is
high flow cats on a B8 3.0T okay to use? Any recommendations on a specific brand?
Only if you need to for what you're doing. The stock cats actually perform quite well.
We generally recommend stock cats. I don't have a specific recommendation. I know JHMs are popular, and I think Miltech makes some stuff too. But we in general just have gotten to the point where we just use the stock cats on everything. Someone asked a little while ago why people say below 34. I addressed this a couple weeks ago. There's this false narrative that some of our competitors propagate that customers should buy their tuning and not ours because our tuning blows motors. That's just not true. I think it's a pretty unfortunate choice for these competitors to try to falsely disparage our tuning and products. You'll hear it from kind of the same few people and their supporters who are trolls. So we're trying really hard to rise above that. We don't want to get dragged down into that. But I do want to make sure that, and I'll confidently look in the camera and say that that's false and our tunes do not blow motors. Motors do blow, and there are problems and issues on factory Audis as well as on every tuning company. And it's not necessarily caused by the tuning, although sometimes it is. In our case, we develop and engineer these tunes and calibrations better than anyone in the industry. There's just nobody else doing the kind of work that we do here to make all factory safety systems work. The amount of testing, the thousands and thousands of hours of calibration, testing, validating, verifying, we do it more than anyone. So not going with our tuning to go with kind of a small new player on the market with virtually no experience tuning or calibrating this platform, I think would be foolish. So I think if you hear and see that, it says a lot about the person who's propagating that. So that's all we'll say about that. Won't name names anymore. But you don't need to know who, but if you see anyone doing it, I think you know what it's about. So, all right, I think that's all the questions we got for today.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us once again. We'll see you guys next week. Cheers.
Here. That's it. Didn't have any of my buttons lined up.
Sorry about that. It was 12:16.